Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Desk. Mas One, Initialize, and Nine Mera. Gentlemen, we watched V3 beat the Hawks. But now we've got the Hawks facing off against Crest Gaming Act. And Crest Gaming Act, we've been rather impressed with some of their performances. They might not always find that W, but we're impressed with what they're doing on the map, on the Rift at the time. And Initialize coming into this game, I don't think it's unfair to say, but Crest Gaming Act looks slightly favored coming into this.
I think that's probably fair. Like, last game, we saw a decent early game from the Hawks. But their mid-game team fighting, their comp into what V3 was drafting, just their drafting in general, where they're kind of getting decent comps for themselves, but not into what their opponents are doing, has been problematic for the Hawks. And on the other side for CGA, the top half of their map, particularly their mid-jungle duo, has been on an absolute tear in the LJL.
It has been, and that's part of the element of where we have that concern. But I want to take us first over to the mid lane, Nymera, and let's cover this mid matchup because Naehyun looks to be maybe trying to reprise and become the new Arya at the moment. They've got a lot to prove, and that Lucian game against Arya definitely brings me some hope. Obviously, Dasher, veteran in the mid lane, and a lot of historic importance around this player. We're truly yet to fully see the ability that we know from them. But what do you think about this matchup?
I think this is probably the highest level matchup across the board. I think we both agree with that. I mean, there is an outside argument for maybe top lane between Afman and Nap if they're both on form. We saw some really fantastic games between CJ and Sengoku when both these top laners were on their previous teams up in that top side of the map. But Naehyun has come into the LGL looking to make a mark, and they have made a mark already. That Lucian game versus Detonation Focus Me, as you say, very, very good. You can try and make caveats and try and say, yeah, Lucian's a good matchup to Orianna. It's definitely a matchup which you can abuse. But getting solo kills versus Arya in any matchup is obviously very special in the LGL, considering their 2020, considering their 2019 as well. Naehyun is definitely making moves and trying to become that new mid lane carry for CGA, because of course they had Arya last split. But Dasher was definitely the point of consistency and the point of strength for the Hawks throughout last year and coming into this year too.
Yeah, absolutely. But over on the side of Crest Gaming Act, they have got two rookie players, that being Milan, that being Kassin. Both of them are making their rookie debuts in the LJL, and they're facing off against Zenit and Tussle, two players who have actual years worth of professional play experience in Initialize, and that's going to be a problem for the side of Crest Gaming Act. They're going to have to be teaching these guys not only just how it works on the Rift, but also what it's like to play in a competitive play and everything, right?
Absolutely. Kassin honestly has had a very good start to the LJL, but he's been able to play the jungle his way. He's been playing things like the Rek'Sai, the Shinzao, where there is this opportunity for this guy to play aggressive early, play to his pace, his tempo, and we haven't really seen him too much on the back foot. And when he has, he's been a lot more quiet. Obviously, there was the one Shinzao game, which I believe he lost to DFM, I think is the one I'm thinking of on that one. Forget when that Shinzao game came out. I'll have to double check who he was playing
Week one.
against. Yeah, that's right. It was, I'm having a minor blank there, but the point being that he managed to get some things going in the mid game, but things got a little rougher there, and that just means that as rookies, it can get a little tough. Milan, in particular, has suffered a bit in lane. Has suffered a little out of lane as well. There's been some good moments from him, but there's also been some oversteps, and he's nearly consistently ended up down in lane. Just needs a bit more time, potentially.
Needs a bit more time, but there is no more time initialized. They're already playing against the Hawks, so how can they have more time if they're already about to play a game of League of Legends, mate? Like,
Chrono
it's just
breaks.
physically impossible.
Chrono breaks. That's
live.
it. Not again.
Chrono
Not
break
again.
live. Can we not have any more chrono breaks, please? I
boy.
don't really want to be just sitting around for like an hour watching you guys sit around for waiting.
Well,
What are you talking about? Our ability to podcast on the fly is unmatched.
Last time I was like, oh no, I'd best go join them while you were casting yesterday. I was thinking, okay, all right, let's see if we can try and waste this time a little better.
2 chrono breaks so far. However, thankfully, we are doing Blast from the Past, so we do have the ability to time warp through the rest of the game. And
Magical
gentlemen,
powers.
it really is. It's not a magical journey, though. Thankfully for you, Nymera, you wouldn't like that, I don't think.
Bard Free Zone.
Bard. Yes,
Bard Free
exactly. Now, gentlemen, I already have said, and we're on the agreeing that Crest Gaming out. Would you agree, Nymera, that Crest Gaming out is favored coming into this, or do you think it's more the Hawks favored, or do you think it's pretty even still?
I think it's more even than saying it's out and out CJ favored. I think that CJ have had issues towards the bottom side of the map, and I don't think that's where the Hawks have been strongest. I do think I rate Zen and Corporal over Milan and Alchemy so far. And I think the strength of Nahan matches up to the strength of Dasher. I think the main problem for me is what's going to happen in this jungle matchup. CGA have been unapologetically playing their own style and just doing whatever the heck they want. The Hawks kind of did that in the last game too, actually, which shows some signs of life for them. And if they have managed to prep appropriately coming into this week, and it looks like they've done that to a certain extent. I mean, like I said, it was heartbreaking to lose some of those team fights. I think that the Hawks have some points of power to play around. But it's very hard to ignore the fact that CJ have been succeeding so well in the early game around this top side of the map. And I do think that does give just the edge to CGA.
Well, with that said, gentlemen, I think it's about time that we go over to the pick and ban phase. So, gentlemen, when you're ready, take it away.
Thank you so much, Maswan. But it leaves myself and Nymera to the business of casting this game of League of Legends, namely the SoftBank Hawks versus Crest Gaming Act. The Hawks will be on the blue side, it'll be CGA on the red, and for the Hawks, it is still Appermen, Tussle, Dasher, Zenit, and Corporal rounding out their roster.
And it's the boys in blue taking up the red side, Crest Gaming Act. That is Nap, Cassin, Nahian, Milan, and Alchemy.
Few bans that we do need to touch on here. The Hawks have decided to go towards the Twisted Fate, which of course Nahan has pulled out before. That Camille that Nap has also had one fantastic game on, one rough game on versus DFM. And then finally, of course, Milan's go-to Misfortune. On the other side, CGA taken off the Kaiser, of course, very strong at the minute in general, alongside these two power farming, brawling junglers of the Olaf and the Udyr, which leaves Tussle to pick up the Lilia. And
we've talked about Tussle not finding that much success on the champion, but it's still a comfort champion. It allows you to fall back to some very high value playstyles just by picking up a lot of farm, because you farm so quickly, and you don't have to commit your body to a lot of ganks. You can just throw out swell seeds. It's not a very high-risk champion, to say the least. On the other side, Crest Gamer is going to pick up the Seraphine, who can, of course, be flexed between mid, bot, support. So having a triple flex on the red side as their first pick bodes well for this team.
Yeah, like, I hesitate to remind you, but of course we know that Lilia's Watch Out Eep. Eep is an acronym, and, you know, with the KFC now sponsoring the official LJL stream over in Japan, you know, it makes more sense because we all know that EAP acronym stands for Eviscerates Enemy Poultry. And, you know, that's a great synergistic moment there for Tussle on the champion.
That it is. So, the Renekton locked in for CGA. That's now a bit scary for the Hawks, because we know that Nap is a Renekton player, and what this will almost certainly signal is that CGA are going to be locking in a jungler with their third pick. The Hawks can't take away a choice jungler away now, because they've already locked in that Lilia. They have to lock in something which will survive on that top side of the map. And if you don't lock in something like the Gragas, the Ornn, or the Gangplank, which tends to survive that combo, you're probably going to have that banned away. And I'm not sure that's exactly what the Hawks want, but they have got themselves that choice bot lane combo of the Rel and the Samira.
They picked it early last time. They ended up into a comp where Samira was really struggling to pop off. This time they've done it again, but we'll see whether they get a little bit more free reign to do what they would like. CGA, though, are thinking of locking in the Nidalee alongside the Renekton, which is such a deadly combo. Instead, they'll go towards the Xayah, prevent the Milan's champion pool being stifled anymore. So that's locked in. It might be alongside the Seraphine, but of course, that could still be flexed.
So the thing about the Xayah into Samira is that you often think, well, that W just, you know, that can be so good, it can deny the feathers, right? Well, you kind of need to use your W as Samira to block out so many things that it's very easy for you to dive into a fight and just ignore the fact that the feathers could still be pulled through you. If Rel Samira goes too hard onto the Xayah and you walk through the feathers, that is a lost trade no matter how hard you go in. In fact, we saw a similar thing to that effect with the Rel Kaiser versus the Xayah from Utapon and Detonation Focus Me, who did outplay that 2v2 so well alongside Kazu and DFM's bot side. Xayah has a lot of tools to outplay the aggressive fallback kind of team fights, and if it is versus the Seraphine, having that ultimate in the E just bolsters that kind of playstyle.
Stepping away from team fights, we've seen some very interesting bans here. I like the AD mid laner focus from CGA, which of course would have set up really well with the Lilia. That Yone, that Lucian off the table. On the other side, it was the Talia and the Nidalee, those two prime combos with the Renekton off the table. But that means that Cassin just falls back to that old faithful of his, Xin Zhao, once again for this young rookie jungler.
Okay, so we have ourselves some really early priority now, not something we always see coming out. In fact, it's been a while since we've seen Xin Zhao truly be meta, but having this now available, it's basically saying, I'm not going to go towards the top side, I'm going to be all across the map, and I'm really going to be punishing this Lilia, who can obviously get a bit punished, much like the Talia it was picked into beforehand, by the Xin Zhao.
Okay, well that will be Appermen on the Ornn. We've had our questions about this guy on Ornn in the past. He's missed a few sitting ultimates before, so we'll see whether he sets it up well. But honestly, the Hawks have a killer teamfight comp right now. Rel plus Orianna is a brutal combo. It is so hard to miss your shockwave with that, unless people really overextend out of the tether range. Adding a Call of the Forge God on top of that, adding a Lilting Lullaby, and that looks like a lot more stable a 5v5 front-to-back comp than last game for the Hawks. On the other side, CGA locked in the Rakan last, so that will mean it is Xayah, Rakan, Seraphine mid, and aggressive top side of the map, quite a defensive side of the map in some ways between this Xayah and Rakan, who can play quite safely and look to hit their own team fights as well, even if they do hit their spikes a little earlier.
But you have a real dearth of AP damage, of magic damage. You don't really have, because of course when you're going Moonstaff on the Seraphine, you don't do a massive amount of damage yourself. The healing and shielding, sure, that's always going to be very effective, but when you have a team that has backline access like the Ornn, Call of the Forge God, amongst other things, it's really dangerous to start playing this Seraphine as the sole AP, because it can just get nuked, and I now worry for CGA, because they locked in that Xin Zhao, that they're not really going to be able to take down the likes of the Rel and the Ornn when it comes to the longer team fights.
And I'd be willing to put good money on Appermen basically rushing tier 2 armor boots, those steel caps, alongside a bramble vest, because he's into double AD top.
Exactly.
Like Renekton, Xin Zhao, you get those double armor items in, and they have a much harder time of getting the kills that they've kind of set themselves up to try and get.
And I think that if you can't really all in on the bot lane too easily, even if Rakan uses the Grand Entrance, Rel is pretty able to peel away the Rakan. I don't think that's going to be the most assured of engages. So I'm looking at this from the side of CJ and going, well, where can you actually go in the early game? Because it's not like Seraphine sets up massively well against an Orianna. I think Orianna's probably going to be relatively safe in this lane. And that means that CGA, who have very early game champions in the likes of the Xin Zhao and the Renekton on the top side, probably not playing to their favorite part of the game.
No, potentially not. Of course, you know, hit that level 6 mark just beforehand. You can still play with aggression in that top lane, of course. You can still look to get that before Ornn becomes super tanky. And then you've got Renekton, Rakan, and Xin Zhao all heading in. Seraphine throws the ult over the top. And those early sort of to very early mid-game team fights when you've got those ultimates first available, you could definitely snowball this game for CGA. But this is a much narrower win condition than we're used to seeing from these guys. And for once, I think Hawks will probably come out on top in the draft here.
I would agree. I think I would agree. I think they also have, well, they have a massive range advantage, right? Call of the Forge God is just the ultimate from Appermen, and Appermen has not really been the best Ornn player, you definitely mentioned that. But just having that tool available, having the Shockwave, Swirl Seeds, and the that gives you the ability to play standoffish for quite a while. Whereas on the side of CGA, you're only really looking at Seraphine to back up that kind of long-range pick slash combat ability, because you're looking at the Renekton, Rakan, Xin Zhao, and they have to commit very, very hard to a fight, which is not really the best thing for them.
And while there's a fair few tools to interrupt Samira, of course, between Rakan and even the Xin Zhao with that ultimate, and a few, of course, some, you know, the Renekton point and click stun, those are all good ways to interrupt Samira. Hawks also have better ways to set her up too, between, you know, the Orianna Shockwave, Lilting Lullaby, Call of the Forge God, all the knockups that Ornn can provide. They too can kind of give enough CC to allow Samira free time to shoot and get into close range and start pulling off that Inferno trigger.
No, I guess the problem with the Samira is that there's as you see the observer move the chat out of the bot left.
Yes.
I think that's what's happened with the observer recently. I've heard many of my production colleagues being relatively annoyed on the observer side of things. Luckily, we just boot like off the Japanese observer, so we don't need to worry about that at all. Yes, that is the face I make too when I play Xayah. I'm just like, yay. Yeah. I don't know actually how to describe that. I was like, wow, cool.
I was about to make a comment about your degeneracy, but it's hit such disappointing levels as your older brother. You know, I'm going to have a word with the parents and say, you know, got to have a bit of an intervention here. Xayah and RE player. It's just not acceptable.
See, the funniest thing for that is that I've played basically no ranked this season, but the only games I have played have pretty much just been on Xayah because I've been really...
How's that gone? I've heard you found it pretty good at the minute.
I think Xayah's very, very strong. There are good reasons for people picking up so much Xayah. It's in a meta, in a world with so much engage, you have the ability to scale very well with your items. You're strong in the early game, and Corporal running in, trying to look for the flip, but the good grand entrance.
Triage did look for that. Of course, it's a wild rush start from Zenit as well to try and follow up. Didn't quite find it, and that means that Zenit probably comes out slightly worse in terms of the health bar right now. Can be stepping forward to himself. You can see with the Xayah Recline, it's a slightly different start than what you normally expect from either of these carries individually, but they kind of do like to run that W start right at this point.
With Xayah Rakan, if they're into a short-range matchup but they can all in, W start from both Xayah Rakan, very, very strong. You go in with the grand entrance, and if Xayah or Rakan lands one auto, you get the movement speed for both champions, which allows you to start running people down. The Wild Rush start from Zenit on Samira is because when you use the Wild Rush, you get attack speed for the next couple of seconds, and as much we know that Samira's not got a great amount of damage on the Q at first level. It's basically just an extra auto attack. It's an auto reset because it does have 100% AD scaling, but it's got 0 base damage. It's not like of course, something like the Ezreal who has a bit easier time poking people out at their level 1 because of the cooldown and stuff. But yeah, having the W start from all 4 members of the bot lane just a tad unorthodox.
Yeah, there you go. It's just there. It's all on in. Tussle has path from top to bot, so we'll be around this lane that has shoved in a little way. And when you've got this Rel, who's pretty good engaged from early on, flash in straight away the moment I talk about it. Attract, repel is there. First blood for Zenit and Corporal, and the bot lane of CGA falls again. And Zenit gets a double. It's a disaster in 2 parts.
Disaster, a fight, a play into Act, and Zenit comes out with being the victor in both of those said chapters in that bot lane fight. Now Dasher getting caught in the mid lane.
Oh, that's in trouble. Does flash away, but now Cassim flashing in. They're under tower, though. They're still going to go for it. The high note's not quite enough.
No way!
No! Not again! It's a double kill in mid for the Dasher. CGA are in shambles.
Absolute shambles. Lanes fall to pieces. Orianna is not a champion that has a massive amount of early damage, but turns out towers are all you need. I guess we're looking back at this bot lane play. You see what happens with the Wild Rush. It's a good grand entrance, but the damage is already done. The heal isn't even popped from Milan on the bot side. Just sees himself as just dying. But that one minion and the cleanse to get rid of the ignite, super slick from the Hawks bot lane. Now we're looking at, okay, well, what's Cassin really looking to do? Has double off level 3 Jinzai, one of the strongest champions in the game. But dashing in and then taking what, 3 tower shots, all things said and done, just way too much. The dissonance catching the slow onto the last member. Now you're facing against a completely lost chapter at 4 minutes and double buff Orianna, who's going to have run of the map in the mid lane for the next foreseeable future.
Oh, that was just painful to watch. What a disaster indeed. And of course, you kind of see what the plan is, but the tower aggro juggling wasn't quite there. Nation backed away,
wasn't quite there. They just rammed themselves face first into the mid lane out of turret.
I know.
Let's not mince words here. That was very strange.
Just didn't pull it off, and then you're going to see an engage in here as Corporal goes over the wall. Zenit is looking to go in as well. Attract Repel is available. There is the Wild Rush, the Blade Whirl as well. And Milan stunned in place. Magnetized, one might say. And Zenit picks up his 3rd kill of the game. And both carries are off to an incredible start here for the Hawks.
This is so bad and uncharacteristic from what we've seen from CJ in the first couple of weeks of play in the LJL Spring 2021. Milan and Alchemy...
goal difference!
Milan and Alchemy have often been the weak point of this team, and Kassin and Nation have been the strong point. Well, now CJ have to deal with both of those lanes being behind. Dasher has level 6, so does Nation. Doesn't have the flash to follow up with the Encore. Kassin waiting once again to see if there's any inroads into this mid lane, but CJ are just not finding any kind of impact anywhere. The only lane which isn't behind is top lane, but it's Renekton into Ornn, and with an Ornn who can build full armor into this matchup of the top jungle. So CJ, what are they going to do? They need a pretty incredible turnaround to get themselves back onto even footing in this game.
Man has 6. Nap doesn't quite yet, but if he gets the 1 or 2 minions in here, I'm sure he'll be there himself. There it is. Dominus now available. And he does indeed have Bramble and Cloth, but he just don't do any damage. He's got Call of the Forge God yet, and they can't even find the Call of the Meek. So, at which point Ahmed throws a thumbs up and says, yeah, what exactly did you expect to get from this?
Oh my god, and he
knew
denies
it was going to be a concern.
He actually comes out ahead from that, because he denies Nap a cannon to tower, because he just walked past the wave. CGA, this is full-on desperation mode. You're giving over dragons. You can't even dragon stack at this point. You're behind, for all intents and purposes, in all lanes. And you can say, well, isn't Renekton ahead of the Ornn? Yeah, but Ornn is building armor into a team where he doesn't care about the magic damage. He's already got himself a Bramble Vest and a Cloth armor, building towards those steel toe caps, as you were saying. This is complete warning sirens blaring for Crest aiming out, and Hawks are very, very happy with this early game on the counterpart to that.
I think the sirens might be a little late to sound because the air raid is here. Look at the bot lane. It is over 1,000 gold difference, and Samira and Rel both have steel toe caps. Like, who kills these guys now at this point? They've already got enough damage. They've got a Vamp Scepter on Samira. She's got her cleanse available as well. It was already going to be difficult in this game. We said CGA had a narrow window. They have not only failed it, but they've just gifted over 5 kills within 8 minutes over to the Hawks, bot and mid lanes.
Narrow window? Well, maybe they're just jumping out the window at this point and hurtling towards a very unfortunate next couple of minutes of play, because it's as you were saying, right? Even Samira doesn't really care to go full attack speed. Wild Rush gives you enough of a steroid in that regard, and because you have so many auto resets, and it's not like your ultimate scales off of attack speed itself, as Alchemy at least takes the scuttle. Zenith's in such a good position, because who's actually going to dive onto this guy? And now you've got all this armor stacking. Kassin, who's building lethality, is sat there going, oh, poo, this is really not the best position to be in.
And honestly, I think part of the reason why Rel is such a good combo with Samira as well is that Attract Repel offers AoE CC around Samira when she goes in. It makes her engage combos that much harder. Of course, that Immobilize means that she then gets her own passive knock-up from it as well with her auto attacks. So
you only get that on
really
knockups nowadays.
Oh, is it knockups now?
Yeah,
okay.
that was removed about. I think it was on the preseason patch, so not quite. So it would have been about 4 or 5 patches.
It would have been.
Ago.
That was really strong.
Yeah, it was very, very strong. It would have been about 3 or 4 patches ago when Samira had that change to them, because it was the kind of thing where you'd have Nautilus with 2 forms of CC at level 1, and then instant you have chosen death from.
True enough. Okay, well, I take that back. Instead,
it's why Alistair and Rel are very strong in the combo still, because at least they still have
knockouts.
They still have knockouts, which work very well with the kit.
Absolutely. Either way, my point being that, Samira doesn't bring a lot of her own CC, but Rel means she's got a mobile CC ring around her, which is kind of nice.
It is, and 1 ring to stun them all, apparently. As Kassin is seen on the ward topside, and after
2 of them.
Now there are. Yes, so Kassin was looking topside, but this Shinzo is so early game focused. To have the early game go like this is even worse than if it was something, like a Lilia, like a Talia, whatever. If you're at least down 5 kills, at that point you still have combos you can play around. Your damage portfolio for CGA is so physical heavy. You have so little magic damage to worry about. You're literally just waiting for a wombo combo from Rakan Nahian, and the wombo's coming from Corporal.
The Magnet Storm is in. Milan does go up in the feathers, but I think it's going to be too late. Bladewell actually not as well timed, I think, as Zenit would have liked. Still thinking about going in because it's a lilting lullaby. There's no way out of this one. Inferno trigger as Paul and Zenit gets a 4th kill.
pulls the trigger, and Milan goes down for the third time. This rookie AD carry really not having another good game in the LJL. They had a difficult week 1, a slightly stronger week 2, but week 3 is starting on a relatively poor foot, even in CS, but 4 kills down in the 2v2. CJ's bot lane continuing to have issues.
And even that mid-jungle 2v2 for CGA that's been so imperious in the LJL has really crumbled. They went for a very aggressive early play. It's what they've been known for, getting Nation ahead with those aggressive early ganks. Instead, they give Dasher 2 kills. That really stunts what wants to go on. They've got first turret. They are up 3,000 gold. They've got first dragon. It's only 11 minutes into game. And we'll go into this replay to watch this engage one more time.
So Rakan doesn't have the quickness. That's the first thing to notice. You don't have the extra CC to play around. Okay, so you still got the Featherstorm, that's nice, but at least what happens with that Blade Wheel, as you're saying, Zenit, doesn't stop them the route onto themselves. It means that the rest of the team of the Hawks can still follow up because they're not rooted in place. Second Blade Caller comes in, it's just not enough at that point. Milan and Alchemy just way too far up with level disadvantage. And numbers too.
And of all champions to give 4 kills too early, Samira has to be among the absolute worst. She's got shield bow pre-12 minutes. There's the quickness, and he just, watch out, eeps away. A nice attempt. I appreciate the idea, but it just didn't work at all.
Again, but you could say that about so many of CGA's plays. Well, maybe contest that nice idea for maybe, I don't know, giving a double kill over to Dasher early. This Orianna has been given such a free road into this game too. There's no member on the Hawks who isn't happy with this game state, and there's no member of CGA that really has the tools to break open this game in an easy fashion. It's going to have to be really down and dirty fighting from CGA, trying to really force some plays on unexpected turns of the map, because right now, any standard play I look at, probably not working out for them.
I mean, it was a tough ask with where the team comes from. We had our questions about where CGA wanted to play this game, and promise we've never actually got to see them play the way they wanted to. Their bot lane kind of fell apart in the 2v2, and in the one attempt in mid lane went so disastrously wrong. It's put everything really badly in position, but Nation now might have found the engagement. That was a great flash from Dasher to avoid the encore. And he gets out despite a bit of an over-aggressive trade in mid lane.
I mean, what's the worst that's going to come from this? Because Sin shows on top side, so that means that Samira's still taking down the turret there, getting more plays. Alchemy's now heading up, but Tussle's there. But it's not like they can really respond.
Oh, he gets interrupted! The teleport is cancelled. Here comes the rest of the Lilting Lullaby will be cleansed away from. And now Cassin getting out as well. But in goes Samira inside the Crescent Guard. And Alchemy is turned to lead. Never mind. Gold as Cassin falls down to Tussle. It's a big Featherstorm gets Samira. That's a big shutdown. But Ornn gets the kill regardless.
It's a 3-for-1. Shutdown will help at least even up some of that gold trade. It does also go up to Milan on the Xayah. But Xayah's gone for Essence Reaver first. Not even managed to go for the Gale Force, having to stick at the non-mythic item. CGA at least find themselves something, but it's still very bad across the map. As you were saying, it starts off the teleport cancel, who doesn't back off far enough, and Afma says, well, I guess I'll have that. Nahun is running the Unsealed Spellbook as far as I'm aware, so they did manage to have a cleanse in their inventory, but that means they're not there. They don't have the Encore anyway, because that was just used in the mid lane, and it doesn't matter that Orianna doesn't have the Shockwave in response. It doesn't matter that Orianna's not even there. So this is still going to be what? That was a 4v4 across the board, and it just, as the Hawks just run away with it.
Yeah, well, that's Eclipse and Moonstone complete for Cassin and Nation, but then look across at the other side of the table. Samira is at a devastating point of power. Orianna is she's got to start tier. She's on her way to a mythic and is not far off herself. Look at the plate gold. It is 2 towers and all of their plates pre-14 minutes for the Hawks.
It's huge. That's just such an injection of gold, and one of the reasons why League of Legends has sped up so much as a game has been because of Herald, and because of plates, and because it allows advantages and gold to be prioritized to carries such as this. Zenit getting all 10 plates, at least in partial participation, and is now up to, what, is that a 2.3k gold lead over Milan? That's verging on a full item at only 15 minutes into this game.
I literally involuntarily twitched when I saw that gold lead on Samira. Like, that is foul at any point in the game. An individual gold lead of over about 2,500 gold. 2,500 gold. It's only just ticked over to 15 minutes, Nightmare. And I know, obviously, a lot of this is CGA
that's exactly what I was just saying.
Yeah, getting snowballed against. But at the same time, for the Hawks, this is such a refreshing look. It's confident, it's aggressive. They found Zenit getting a lot more playmaking. They feel a lot more active and purposeful on the map. And instead of losing these kind of mid-game team fights, which was their bane in the last one, they are really finding victories wherever they go. Maybe Apperman is overextended here.
Oh, just Apperman things. There's a teleport coming in. I actually reckon he survives long enough here.
He's got so much armor. They're going to call the Forge God and try and get out of it. He's knocked up forever. There's a big shockwave that buys time. Apperman tries to flash, but that's just too late. And had to burn a lot, did CGA, but they do at least get a second kill on the board.
I was wondering whether Apperman would flash out to get the Call of the Forge God reactivation. Doesn't quite manage to survive long enough. It was a close run thing. CGA, like you were saying, happy to get at least another kill on the board. I know you're talking about the Hawks and how this is, of course, just a really good look for them. But one of the things about this match in particular is, remember back to last playoffs, because the Hawks and CGA did play in the first round of playoffs in summer. Very different rosters, very different teams. But the one game that the Hawks did win was after an early lead was thrown in their face, an early triple kill over to Honey, who is, of course, now the Axe's AD carry. And they ran away with that. They knew how to play with a lead, and it looks like this roster, still retaining some of their parts, also knows how to at least give themselves a winning game state when it's presented to them.
And Zenit and Corporal as well. They've had some awkward moments, but this has been a fantastic laning phase for them. Mid lane as well, Dasher kind of getting that big outplay, partly off over-aggression from Nation and Cassin, partly from, decent plays himself to get the right flashes at the right time and all that kind of jazz. But this is just nice play, mostly from around the board. The one pick onto Apperman there where he was a little overextended in the side lane. Feel like we've seen that before from this player somehow.
Whatever could you be talking about? By the way, didn't go for toe caps, just went towards boots of lucidity. Doesn't actually care for the toe caps. Just saying, I will be tanky enough. Anyway, let's get some more CDR.
It's cheap CDR, can't necessarily disagree, but of course CJ did manage to pick up a second Drake. They're going to start
Alchemy's on the flank.
This Ocean Drake as Corporal goes in, getting a big Magnet Storm, but yes, that is a big flank. Zenit goes very low and goes shut down. That is good news for CGA. The Lilting Lullaby and the Zhonya's into the Shockwave, though, is a great turnaround. CJ thought they had the fight. Big knock-up now onto Nation, who is trying to heal with the Moonstone Renewer. Corporal at the back end, maybe looking for an engage, but that is the second Drake over for CGA. That is a decent teamfight option. The quickness now popped. Apperman gets knocked up, and CGA find a teamfight very much against the run of play. And for all the praise we've been heaping on the Hawks, that was a nice turnaround from CGA.
It's a nice turnaround, and a lot of it comes out of Zenit not really playing respectfully with his lead, saying, well, it doesn't matter, I've got myself the Immortal Shield Bow, I'll get out of this alive. Absolutely doesn't, gets nuked in the early part of that fight, and it falls apart a little bit from the side of Hawks when they lose their primary gold source. Corporal goes very deep, but the counter engage from Nap and Alchemy is really on point. They get into the backline, and the combo onto Zenit is very hard for him to avoid. I don't think the Hawks really end up. They had a ward over the wall, of course, over in that mid lane brush, but they didn't see who was inside the brush, so Zenit, even with the cleanse available, doesn't manage to get out. And it looks like Corporal just went a little too far, and the counter engage from CGA just very on point.
And I have got to call out here that actually CGA's ward coverage in Hawks jungle, of all places, considering the lead, was immaculate. They had no idea Alchemy was there. Their only vision was in that mid lane bush. They go in, Corporal looks for the engage, and Alchemy goes, well, you've just disappeared from your carries. My turn to go. And honestly, I've got to call out the Hawks a little bit there for saying, yeah, you guys went in blind and got really punished there.
It did. And vision is so important at any state of the game in professional League of Legends. Guys, if you don't have information, the fog of war does tend to be very, very dangerous to you. There's only so much deductive reasoning you can do with the micro vision kind of play, thinking he's going to definitely be in this brush. You can maybe tell what area of the map people are on, but getting the exact distances and actually seeing it gives you so much more ability to react and perform accordingly in these team fights.
Well, that is a breath of fresh air for CGA fans who are getting very nervous, and rightly so. Problem is, they're still down 4,000 gold. I suspect the Hawks won't allow that to happen again, or they shouldn't allow that to happen again. They've still got a fair command of this game, but CGA at least aren't completely out of sight, even if it is, a few miles away.
So, extra items that have been completed.
Yes.
Zhonya's and the Lost Chapter picked up for Tussle. A lot of CDR. A lot of ability to be a pseudo frontline when you pop that active from the stopwatch passive. And Apperman has Thornmail. So, Chemtank, Thornmail on. that sounds just
my
horrific
days.
for the side of CGA. And it's
Yeah.
not like anyone else is slowing across the board either, because the Morello component of the Oblivion Orb has been completed for Dasher 2. There's even grievous wounds to bring to bear from the side of the Hawks, whereas on the other side, at least Nathan's picked up an Ardent Sensor, which might help the 2-Ite Milan now do a bit of damage in these teamfights.
Does mean it's not Staff of Flowing Waters second, of course, which is the general go-to, but Ardent
It is,
much
but
better with Milan, but that has
Milan
been
and
the choice.
Kassin and Nap, there are a lot of auto attackers, and the problem is, you look at the AP ratios across Xin Zhao and Milan's Zaya, and then of course the Renekton, there isn't really that much, so the Staff of Flying Water is doing less value than if you had a Gragas top lane, or a Kai'Sa AD carry, or of course the variety of AP junglers that are working right now in the meta.
Alchemy does come up here and catches this ward off, who's maybe looking for a gank, but Dasher is aware of the shenanigans that are going on, and got a little bit of downtime here as well. And also got to call out, of course, that Dasher Oblivion Orb second, I think, is really smart.
Yeah, I was just talking about that too. Just having the green screen is very impactful.
Absolutely. Exactly. Because, of course, you mentioned the Thornmail from Morn. That's wonderful, but that's reactive Grievous Wounds. That's if people attack you. Dasher's Oblivion Orb is proactive.
Remember that Thornmail, if you immobilize an enemy champion, actually applies the 60% now as well.
True enough. Cassin's in danger here, though, a little bit, and he's going to get Lilting Lullaby. Do you expect? He does go to sleep, but Flash is out. Now they're going to come in from behind. Look at Apperment's flank! The core of the Forge God destroys Cassin's chances of escaping. He's put in the dirt. Apperment with a beautiful little positioning on that ultimate, and Hawks will force their way in on the Baron with the jungler dead, and they've certainly got the damage to consider doing this.
Ain't no Crescent guarding that. Kassin goes down, jungler not available, and a lot of tank there to tank a Baron. Hawks taking the Baron and fishing for engages.
Use the Magnet Storm, that's down, but Nation has also lost Flash. It is a 4v5 and very, very tanky, the Hawks. Yes, Appman's down to about half HP, but that's still more than enough to finish up this Baron. No jungler. Nap's going in. That's a big knock up. Lilia has secured the Baron, though, so that is down, but 2 kills have gone the way of CJ at the back end of this fight. So the Hawks need to disengage.
The Gale
Force! Goes Milan! And that's what you get out of a Scouting Grounds AD carry. The Gale Force completed a triple kill over to CGA. Hawks pull the early Baron and get punished massively for their over-aggression around the pick. They get the jungler and get aced in turn.
The Hawks don't get to use their Shockwave Dasher, not finding the correct time to do so. They get the Baron, but at what cost? It's all 5 members. I think that's actually ended up being a clean ace after, of course, the earlier pick onto Kassin. And the key of that fight, once again, was actually Nap getting right on top of Zeno. Going to go back to the replay. I want you to watch how Nap just gets right on top of Zeno and just stops Samira from impacting this fight. I want to see as well, what happens to Dasher's Shockwave? What's happening here? The ball is just hanging around the pit, trying to DPS down the Baron, but look at that. There should never be a free walk up into this pit. This should be the point where the big team fight AoE ultimate comes out, and it's just not there. The charm from Alchemy buys so much time. Dasher is flashing out, and I think that this is a very awkwardly played fight from the side of the Hawks, because they had the tools to disengage that. It's a 5v4 for God's sake.
Yeah, and that is just some beautiful stuff. CGA, we said, these mid-late game team fights could be really difficult. They found themselves fighting back from an incredible deficit and have pulled off 2 really big objectives from the Hawks. It was a nice idea, don't get me wrong. The jungler said, we've got the damage to finish up the Baron, and they did, but they could not get out of the pit afterwards. And yes, of course, they've still got themselves some chance in this game, but they've lost 2,000 of that 4,000 odd gold lead they have. Look at the damage in this team fight. You can see Zaya doing massive work. Even Nation on this Seraphine, who, you said, well, maybe not going to have the most damage with the items. Still putting out a fair amount just with the bases she's got available to her. And you can see that gold difference went up to about 5,500, is now down to about 2,500. And it's a minus 2,732 gold and counting Baron buff. We'll call power play in inverted commas because I think it might be a power outage.
Might need to turn back on the lights after that one, see who's got the ability to do that. Kind of call up your Heimerdinger electrician. Maybe they've got some clues for you. But yeah, no, you're right. You're right to call out the damage that Nation did on the Seraphine. And don't get me wrong, it's not an Orianna, it's not a Victor, Syndra.
Sure.
Pretty much all of the other mages in meta would be doing more damage. You're definitely doing it more for the utility on the side of the Seraphine. That doesn't mean you don't do damage if you do stack up for a for a double Q and then the ultimate going through as well. It's still a decent amount of damage across the team fight too, but it is still it's significant, but it's still not going to be the game-ending team fight unless, of course, Milan is doing their own heavy lifting too.
And that's brought Milan back into the game. He has himself a Lord Dominic's Regard alongside that Gale Force that was in play for that last fight critically. And it's matching the items that Samira has after her incredible early lead. Seraphine as well, cheap items, has got Staff of Flowing Waters third, so pretty happy with that. And as the Bruiser items complete for Xin Zhao and for Renekton, that's a massive return in power, really. And Tussle still waiting to complete his mythic item called Zhonya's first. Is very much a stand thing, and yes, Nap is on a flank. He will come across Vision, though, likely here, which means the Hawks do pull away quick enough to find their fourth turret of the game. And don't get me wrong, the Hawks may well still win this game. They've certainly got the tools to, but CGA have not just rolled over and died, and they found some really critical team fights when they've desperately needed to. They found themselves at Soul Point.
Soul Point for Cloud Soul, which is not game-ending, but yes, the Hawks still have the advantage in this game. I still think they do. It's just, the question will be, can the Hawks actually appeal for Zenit in one of these team fights? Because the story of the team fights which CG have won is Zenit just doesn't impact them. He doesn't manage to get past the Renekton and the Xin Zhao and just dies too early into the fight. A lot of that will be on Corporal, a lot of that will be on Dasher to see how quickly they can peel and disengage the team of CGA, because they've been looking for the engage with stuff like the Rel, but that's been leaving Zenit out to dry with no real peel available, because all of that's being used to go forward.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. They've been used to go forward, sure, but then there's been Alchemy, who's been consistently off Vision, then coming in from the back end of the fight. Go back to that Dragon fight, and remember, it was like the 2 control wards in the mid-bush for the Hawks, and that was it. And that has been a little bit of a problem around these objectives. Their Vision setup has been a little bit lacking.
It has been a bit lacking, and now and that was with a larger gold lead, right? You're looking at that with, your huge gold leads earlier into the game. You don't have that same luxury now. You still have the Rel and the Ornn who can face check for forever, really, and in fact, it's getting to the point where Dasher is teleporting away from, decides maybe to go top, says, no, we need mid-prio instead. We need to be sticking as the 5-man unit, because if we get picked off, bad things might happen. And speaking of that, Kassin is going in. Naps pops ult, but I'm not sure they're going to get much out of this.
And there's Appman who spots that out. Yeah, Dominus has been popped, and that's not the best news for CGA. And this time, the Hawks are being a little bit more cautious about how they walk up to this mid lane. You're right, Dasher did teleport in because it's 20 seconds until this soul fight. Tussle gets rooted in place, but that's a well-timed use of the Eep to get out, but he has to use his own Featherstorm. And that's a great Shockwave and Rel combo! That was what the Hawks have been looking for all damn game. And Zenit runs rampant in the back end of the fight. It's a triple kill, and Milan cannot disengage that.
CGA, they win one fight, they win another through some tricky plays, some wonderful plays, but you can't misstep in this kind of game, in this kind of scenario. Samira finally gets the pop off fight. They're going to take themselves the Dragon, probably going to get themselves a Baron too. The Hawks get themselves back into the lead, and this is probably the biggest lead they'll find in this game.
And this time they've got a Baron with no one to finish the fight after they've got it. The first Baron was a bold call, a risky call, a proactive call, and it got punished damn hard. This time they found the fight, they've not even bothered with the Dragon even. They've just turned over to get that Baron. We'll see this play one more time because that was a thing of beauty.
It was, and one of the hallmarks of this fight is that Nap has to use ult early. They don't have the ability to dive onto Zenit nearly as effectively. Milan plays the start of this fight really well, but sleep into Rel, into Shockwave, into all of the mixed damage is just far too much for CJ. All it takes sometimes is one ultimate from the Lilia to turn a game, whether it's a Swirl Seed or a Flash Q or whatever. It is the story of that team fight.
Took off a health bar to get the Swell Seed angle because Milan was looking to punish, but the Lilting Lullaby came through anyway, and we're back onto the rift with the Dragon fight. Alchemy is in that same flank off Vision one more time, but Apperman will body check this time. There's the quickness, buys time. Zenit will get charmed, and he's going to have to try and find his way out. That's a decent cleanse. The Blade Wall is down, but Zenit now getting to free fire. The Collector comes through. He's stepping forward with the damage. It's a triple kill for Zenit. It's a quadra kill for Zenit. He would love that Penta, but they just don't care. Alchemy gets out, but this Samira, 13, 3, and 4 with a Bloodthirster in inventory, with a Drake fight win, with Baron buff on top of her, will crown a victory as they start to move into base and try and end this game.
From the early game, we were ready to say game over. The mid-game gets a bit awkward, slips a little out of hand, but the Hawks recover with style, and the style on Zenit's passive is a large cause of that. They're going to take the Nexus.
They absolutely are, and the Hawks, fantastic early game. Some slip-ups in the mid, partly from some fantastic vision played from CGA. Wasn't enough, and those late-game fights were more than enough to get Hawks another win on the board.
And that does, of course, bring them up to their second win. It's only the second win. This doesn't look necessarily like a team where, in the 2020 spring split, they would have just been capped to those 2 wins from their first 6 games. But the Hawks, they have to play in a tough league, it seems, in this split. Good to see them get another win.
And it was indeed that, but we have got to take a quick break here so we can gather our thoughts and put together something a little bit more spicy for you on the analyst desk. We'll be back in a moment or two. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. LJL, officially unofficial, bring you that coverage of the LJL Spring Split. Master One still in the hosting seat. Initialized play-by-play. Nymera is the color caster. Gentlemen, you just casted over Crest Gaming Act falling to the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. Hawks already getting there, now solidifying, getting themselves that second win. Obviously, Crest Gaming Act will have that opportunity slightly later in the day, but at the moment, let's talk about the Hawks and their victory over Crest Gaming Act. And it started in a very weird place initialized. Lots of kills going over to the side of the Hawk, the 2v2 at 3 minutes, obviously winning that 2v2 in the bot lane, and then obviously what happened in that mid lane.
Yeah, look, we have never doubted the individual talent of most of the Hawks members. There's a lot of talent on that roster. What we have doubted is their kind of ability to synergize together. This time, they have got themselves a beautiful 2v2 in bot, and they get 2 kills onto Samira, and Senate and Corporal played that bot lane immaculately, especially against a lane of Alchemy and Milan, who have struggled in that phase of the game, and they certainly struggled here. And then you turn over to mid lane, where Cassin and Nation do what Cassin and Nation do, namely go for very aggressive early ganks. Dasher, I'll call it half outplay, half just face tanking a turret. And suddenly the Orianna gets 2 kills as well in the space of like 3 minutes. And then Hawks are 4-0 on the board, 2 kills on a Samira, 2 kills on an Orianna, and CGA are looking down an early game deficit they just never wanted to be anywhere near.
I will say, a sizable amount of outplays are letting the opponent outplay themselves, so we'll put it out there.
Yeah, letting the opponent run it down really does help you sometimes when they're in that mood. 10 minutes in, 6 kills, first turret, first dragon, and a 3k gold lead were all on the side of the Hawks. However, there were some important moments around for Crest Gaming Act. The first kind of big turn really that happened for the side of the Crest Gaming Act was around that dragon, and it was that Cloud Drake. They were able to secure the first Drake, obviously, without any contention because the Hawks had gobbled up so many resources around the map. They were able to secure something for themselves, but that Cloud Drake was where they were at least able to get a few kills going. And then, obviously, what's of note is that huge turnaround around that Baron Nymera, where it actually looked like there might be a chance for them. Milan really showing up why I was hyping them up as a scouting ground.
So, I mean, I'm not going to, like, do another play-by-play of both those fights just from memory, but effectively, the key things in those fights was Zenit just didn't get to play the game. Nap and Alchemy and Cassin in both of those fights found ways to get on top of the Samira, who is short range, who doesn't necessarily have the best self-peel tools, has some ability, but if you get stunned up, we saw that even through the shield bow, even through the plated steel caps too, the boots, the armor boots which Samira picked up, it just wasn't enough to keep them in the game. And the Hawks weren't really saving enough peel tools to keep Zenit safe. And that was really the story of those 2 big fights which CJ took against the head. And then, of course, that meant that Milan actually had some space to go forward because you don't have to worry about Samira going right onto you with a huge gold lead with the ability to zero you out. And Milan actually, even though they had a really crappy early game, came back to a very dominant late game for these couple of fights at least.
Zyra coming online in the late game. Who would have known? It's almost like Season 8 meta never happened. We can dream, boys. We can
Season
dream.
9, Kaiser Zyra, let's go.
Oh, boy.
Coming over, though, to this late game, because that's where it all exploded again for the Hawks. They found that pick of 3 members in the mid lane and initialized. I'll let you take over the first half. Please hand over to my Nymera for the dragon part of this, and then you can both end this part out. It was a roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is basically the Hawks got wise to what CGA were trying to do. Alchemy had found some fantastic flanks earlier on in the game, and the Hawks had kind of been a little bit lax on vision control in their own jungle, honestly, around objectives, and it got them really punished at that first Drake. It nearly got them punished around this later game as well, but Lilia, Tussle stepping forward, takes about half his HP in trade, but finds a fantastic swell seed that sets up for a lilting lullaby, that sets up for a Relel, that sets up for a shockwave that sees Zenit going tearing through the backline, wild rushing and pulling Inferno trigger at the same time, and that was it. That was always going to be a problem in these late game fights. We said it in the draft. Yeah, the Hawks kind of have the better teamfight comp, have the better scaling. CGA going to run out of options potentially. That was the kind of fight that showed it.
Which
Yeah,
one
that was not what I expected you to go with.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, that was the one I assumed we were talking about. Not my bad.
I wanted you to do the
So we get
first
having no
Nicholson
clips.
part, and then I was going to transition to Nymera for that one. But
I kind of got a little lost. I thought that was where we were going. Anyway,
Well,
there we go.
I think CJ probably found themselves a little bit more than lost after that point. Like, oh crap, we just things that was the kind of fight where like Milan showed some real class. Between that and the Baron fight, like Milan knowing when to Gale Force forward. The Gale Force at Baron was really cool, getting that double kill. But the one, the fight that they lost, which Sam just helpfully just recapped, there was really cool to see. Like, wow, avoiding like the blooming blows from Lily, which is a pretty quick skill shot with the ultimate, almost taking down the jungler, and then the rest of the team getting caught, and he's just there like, guys, I did all the hard work, and then they just lose the game off of that fight.
I mean, that really showed off Zenit, their ability. You already highlighted that initialize with that ultimate, being able to get multiple different members diving in, and this time not getting having to worry about Milan maybe coming back into this fight mid to late after they might perish, because they're able to just steamroll it, secure that win for them. And the Hawks were able to go 1-1 this week. However, Crest Gaming Act will have that opportunity after this break, as they will be playing against Rascal Jester in definitely an exciting match. High hopes for the Jesters. Crest Gaming Act, can they find the victory back? We'll find out right after this break. Don't go anywhere.